it's Miss Brooke. Today we will be reading The Invisible Boy. Invisible Boy by Trudy Ludwig, illustrated by Patrice Barton. The Invisible Boy. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Miss Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She is too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball teams. The best players get picked first, then the best friends of the best players, then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. JT glances in Brian's direction and, just as quickly, looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table, doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings. It says, "Thank you for toasting my marshmallow." Space aliens locked in intergalactic battles. The alien says, "I got you now." Greedy pirates digging for treasure. Crackers, arg, yay! And superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. Hi, friend, have a cookie. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new kid, to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. It's Bulgogi. Well, Bull what? At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asked Madison as she points at Justin's food. Bulgogi, it's Korean barbecue beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? There's no way I'd eat boogerki. All the kids laugh. All of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good. Brian, yum. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. You're Brian, right? Yeah. Thanks for the note. Hey, Justin, Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. You're up next. Sorry, gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds before taking off. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asked the kids to team up in twos or threes for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads towards Justin. I'm already with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Miss Carlotti said we can have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio. Let him work with us. Okay, I guess. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. Whoa, cool, says Amelia. What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. Here they are working together, and if you notice, he's now colored. At the beginning, he was always drawn, the author, illustrator always drew him in black and white. And now he's becoming more colored. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian, he hears someone shout. Hey, Brian, over here. Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. Cookie? Thanks. Questions for discussion. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball team. How did Micah and JT choose players for their teams? Was it a fair way to select players? Why or why not? Have you ever tried to join a group, game, or activity and other kids wouldn't let you? If yes, how did that make you feel? Have you ever intentionally excluded other kids from joining your group, game, or activity? If yes, why? I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did except Brian. He wasn't invited. Madison and her friends talked about her birthday party in front of Brian. Do you think they were just being thoughtless, or were they being mean to Brian on purpose? Was there a better way for Madison to handle the situation when she and her friends started to talk about her party in front of those kids who weren't invited? Have you ever found yourself in a similar situation as Brian, with kids talking about the fun things they've done with each other in front of you and you weren't included or invited? If yes, how did that make you feel? He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. How many examples in this story can you find that shows Brian's invisibility? Which do you think is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible? What did Brian do to help Justin feel better after JT and the other kids made fun of the food he was eating? Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. How many kids did it take in this story to help Brian to begin to feel less invisible? What specifically did Justin do to make Brian feel less invisible? Are there kids in your class, grade, or school who you see being treated as if they are invisible? If yes, what could you do to make them feel more valued and appreciated? What an amazing question. What can you do to make someone else feel valued and appreciated? The question was, how many kids did it take to make him feel more valued and appreciated? And the answer is one. It took one kid seeing Brian, just noticing him, and inviting him to sit at the table, inviting him into the group. It just took one kid. Maybe that one kid could be you. You could be the kid that makes other kids feel valued and appreciated. Next time you're out and there are groups of children, maybe at the park or the pool, I know it's summer where we're at, and maybe you're out and about at the playground, I want you to look around and see if there are kids who feel invisible, if there are kids who don't feel included. Remember how that feels. We've all been not included. We've all felt invisible at one time or another, whether it's at home with our families, whether it's at school with our teachers, whether it's in our friend groups. We've all had that feeling. So if you remember how that feeling felt inside your body, inside your heart, inside your soul, maybe it can give you the courage to help someone else feel valued and encouraged. Because you, my little friends, you are going to change the world. I hope you have an amazing week.